Welcome to the Story Selling Podcast, the show that explores the art and science of authentic marketing for purpose-led entrepreneurs. With me, your host and founder of the Story Selling Lab, Rob Drummond. This episode of the Story Selling Podcast is sponsored by my agency, the Story Selling Lab, where I help purpose-led entrepreneurs to generate a consistent flow of great clients using LinkedIn ads without funding the big tech Christmas party. To learn more, head to storyselling.biz. On with the show. Pretty hard to please when it comes to marketing books. However, one of my favourite books that I keep coming back to every few years is Confessions of an Advertising Man by David Ogilvy. First published in 1963, this book shares Ogilvy's story about starting what became one of the big advertising agencies of the 1960s, Ogilvy and Mather. So there's a few things about this book. If you read it, it's written in a very personable way. It just tells stories. Like, you really hear David's voice coming through. But as the title implies, it's almost like an insider perspective. It's like you've gone out for coffee with David and he's been like, okay, these are my confessions. These are the things I really learned. These are the from the trenches stories that you won't read about in the tabloids or in the mainstream press. This is what you really need to know. And actually, this idea of the confession is still a valid format today, and it's a format that I use in some of my LinkedIn ads for my clients, and I call it the confession template. So the confession template essentially runs like this. So you send someone a sponsored message. So we're still talking about conversation ads on LinkedIn. So you send someone a sponsored message, and the message opens up, and it says, "Hi, so-and-so. My name's Rob," or my name's your name. "My name's Rob, and I'm writing because I have a confession, ... So you've immediately opened up a loop. One of the reasons that I think this works is because it's quite different to the other sponsored messages that people are receiving. In the next paragraph, you say something to the effect of, "You see, by day, I'm a LinkedIn ads manager delivering great results to my clients. But by night, I've turned into a secret podcaster, or a secret YouTuber, or a secret blogger, spilling the beans on what it really takes to achieve great results on LinkedIn." So do you see how this is kind of working? You've opened up the message by telling them they have a confession. The confession is that you are an expert in your field. You've been doing what you do for a long time. You've got great feedback from your clients. You might actually insert some of the feedback from a client into the ad. So in the next paragraph, you can say, "This is what one of my readers, listeners, viewers recently had to say about all of the blogging, podcasting, YouTubing that you've been doing." You then close off the message by saying, "If achieving a certain result is important to you, I'd like to invite you to join my world. You can subscribe to the blog or podcast or YouTube channel here. There's nothing to buy. I'm here to help you. I'd love to know what you think." And then you sign off the message by saying, "Just click or tap subscribe now to join us." If you'd like to see a templated version of what I've just told you, you can go to storyselling.biz and download my LinkedIn ads conversation template pack. And on this episode, I'd like to pull apart the confession template a little bit more. And as always on the show, we're going to talk about 3 ideas. The 3 ideas are relevance, insider knowledge, and proof. So let's have a look at the first idea. So the thing that I've seen underpin the success of the confession template has been a high degree of relevance between you and the people that you're targeting. And actually, the people that you're targeting maybe aren't receiving a lot of marketing from people like you. When I think across my clients, so I've got about a 50-50 success record with the confession template. It tends to work better in non-marketing related businesses. If I show up and say, my name's Rob Drummond, I'm a LinkedIn ads manager and copywriter, and I've got a confession. Already you kind of roll your eyes like, oh no, here's another marketer telling me he's got a confession. The confession might be something like, I help my clients to publish on a consistent basis, but recently I've not been doing this so much for my own work. So I've started a weekly podcast on what it takes to publish to your list every week without fail. That could be an example of the type of confession that I might make. In marketing or make money type businesses, it just doesn't work that well. It works much better in industries that are less, where the marketing generally is not so prominent. If you were like an accountant, for instance, like we all know that accountants are not great marketers. So if you were an accountant and you were to run LinkedIn conversation ads, sending sponsored messages to people, the conversation ad template is probably the one I would start with, because you can target a very specific group of people, so you can be very relevant to them. You could open up the message by saying, hi, so-and-so, this isn't your regular message on LinkedIn. I'm writing because I run an accountancy firm serving your particular niche. We've been doing this for 10 years, 12 years, but I have a confession. My confession is that we've been keeping our understanding of how your niche works and ways that we can save you money on your accounts. We've not been talking about it. We've not been sharing this knowledge. We've been sharing it with our clients, but not with the wider world. So we've started a YouTube channel about how to save money on your annual accounts if you are a plumber. Would love to know what you think of the channel. You can subscribe on the link below. So that's the kind of thing that can really work, is if it's an industry where they're not receiving a lot of marketing, it's an expertise-based industry, because the confession has to relate to your expertise, and your expertise has to be relevant to the person that you're sending the message to. So relevance is really the first idea. It really helps if your target audience is very defined, that you target a specific niche and you can pick out an aspect of your expertise that you can make the confession about that is highly relevant to the niche that you're targeting. The second idea is insider knowledge, and this really relates to curiosity. So the confession that you make should have a degree of the unexpected about it. And this is, I think, why the confession template doesn't work so well for marketing agencies and marketing businesses, is because it's kind of expected. You know, for me to send you a confession about marketing when I'm also a marketer, like it feels a bit self-serving, and it's also kind of expected. The confession template works when your reason for publishing on an ongoing basis and the driving force behind why you publish is to share some aspect of insider knowledge that your audience is not aware of. Or they might be aware of, but they're not aware of the mechanics of how it really works in practice in the real world. And I'm bashing the marketing industry a bit, and perhaps that's a bit unfair, but for this to work, you have to pick a confession topic that your audience might be aware of, but they are missing something fundamental. And you have insider knowledge about this aspect. Just to stay with the marketing example, it could be that if I was to pick out a specific topic, I could, for instance, pick out CRM systems and how most people select an email marketing or customer relationship management system based on the wrong criteria. I might have some insider knowledge, having worked in these systems for a long time, of how to understand your real requirements and how to select the right system and get it set up and actually use it and involve all of the stakeholders at your company who might need to touch the system, and have the system communicate and integrate to your accounting system and to your website. That could be the insider knowledge. It must be something that nobody else is really talking about, or nobody else is really talking about very much. If the insider knowledge is just to save time or make more money, it's too general. So there's a specific. I keep coming back to specificity in this podcast series, but again, there's a specificity aspect here where the confession needs to be as specific as possible and something that is both relevant and unexpected to the recipient of the ad. In my book, Simple Story Selling, I have a section about story selection, where to select the right stories to promote you and your work and communicate your expertise, we're trying to find the balance between relevance and unexpected. And I call that the story selection seesaw, where the fulcrum point in the seesaw is a balance between the story that you're presenting people being in their field of awareness as something that is relevant to them, but is also something that they weren't expecting to hear from you. That story selection seesaw is also what we're trying to do in selecting a confession to share with them. It must be relevant to them, at least they read it and they go, yeah, I need to solve that problem. But it also must be unexpected. So have a think about your insider knowledge. What insider knowledge have you picked up, have you gleaned, have you sharpened over the years that your market will be aware of, but they're not really thinking about it at the moment? But when they see it coming from you, it shines a light of insight on something that switches a light bulb on in their brain. And that's what's going to make them want to respond to the message and subscribe to your email list, subscribe to your podcast, whatever it is that you're offering them, even just offering them a lead magnet, for instance. So that was the second idea, was insider knowledge. The third idea I want to talk about today is proof. Something I've seen help with the confession ad template, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier in my example, but something that has helped has been adding proof. And the proof should relate to the thing that you're offering in the ad. So if you're offering a lead magnet, then it can help to gather at least one testimonial from someone who has read or consumed your lead magnet and said, this is exactly what I needed. It was fast to read and it helped me achieve X, or it helped me to understand X, or it helped me to see through the problem that I was facing. And the way that fits into the structure of the message is that you add that in after you've told them that you're an expert in this thing, but you've also become a secret blogger, or you've also finally kickstarted your weekly email to your audience. And then this is what one reader had to say. This is what another reader had to say. Because then you're putting it in the words of people like them and you're adding immediate credibility. Otherwise, what you're asking is for them to just consume more marketing. And people never, willingly subscribe to marketing, but they will subscribe to whatever interests them. And sometimes that will be a piece of marketing. That's what Howard Gossage said all those years ago, was that people read whatever interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. So adding in some proof into your confession template, I think, is quite an important piece. It's not an essential piece. I've had some clients recently where we haven't used the proof elements, largely because we've just been testing a lead magnet, or we've been testing a new proposition with the ad, and we just haven't had any proof available to hand at the moment. So, we've got going and we've tested the ad without the proof elements, but my best performing confession templates do have a proof element. It's stronger if the proof that you're inserting into the ad relates to the offer that you're making rather than to your business in general. Again, it comes back to relevance, because relevance is key here, because you're not asking them to become a client at this point. You're just asking them to enter your world. And then you're saying, well, this is what people like you who have taken the step of entering my world said about doing so. I subscribed to Rob's email list, and I was immediately able to see what ad formats to use and how not to fund the LinkedIn ads Christmas party. That's sadly not a real testimonial, but that's the kind of thing that I would try to add to my ads, or I would try to go to my clients and say, what's been the benefit of reading my emails? What's it enabled you to do? How has it enabled you to understand the topic of LinkedIn ads or the topic of marketing? How has it enabled them to understand your topic better? How has it upgraded their level of understanding? Ultimately, that's what great marketing is doing. You're firstly entertaining because entertainment is essential to get their attention, which is why stories work. Secondly, you're educating. And then thirdly, on a slightly deeper level than education, you're upgrading their level of thinking about your topic. If you can upgrade your clients or your potential clients' level of thinking about your topic, they're much more likely to make informed buying decisions in the future, which may involve working with you. It may involve not working with you. That's kind of an irrelevant point because if you have enough people in your world, the sheer numbers game will mean that some of those people will decide that you are the right person to help them. Even if you're in my world, you follow my podcast and you never buy anything from me and you develop a greater understanding of LinkedIn conversation ads and you go and do it yourself or you go and work with another consultant, all of those are good outcomes for me because I want what is the best for you. Because if I have enough people in my world who are developing their understanding, sharpening their level of thinking about LinkedIn ads, some of those people will become clients, which is why I do the podcast. I think the proof element in the ad is an easy element to miss. It's an easy part to skip over, especially if you don't have any customer testimonials to hand about what you're offering in the ad. What you're offering in the ad could be a lead magnet. The best results I've seen generally have been inviting people to subscribe to your list. So it might be that you say, every week I publish my best insights about how to achieve a certain outcome. Would you like to join the list? That's what I've seen generally has worked the best. But it doesn't have to be. In some cases, it could be a specific lead magnet. But the proof that you include in the ad, as I've said, does need to relate to what you're offering. So you might need to go and ask a few readers or a few listeners, look, I'm looking to expand my world. We're doing some marketing to grow the group. Could you just provide me with a few comments on what listening to the show has enabled you to do, or reading my emails? How has it helped you in your marketing or in whatever it is that you do? So go out and get that proof ahead of time so that you've got it to slot into your ad, because it's probably going to help improve your results. Don't just take that as fact. As with all of these things, and what I'm presenting to you are rules of thumb. So it might be that you create a version of your ad that does have the proof elements and a version that perhaps doesn't include the proof elements. By not including it, you create a shorter ad. Sometimes shorter ads can do better because you're not asking the reader to read so much. But generally, in my testing, most of the time, I found that including the proof elements does help, as long as the proof relates to what you're offering. In summary, then, the confession template is my best performing LinkedIn conversation ads template for some of my clients. Mostly those are expertise-based clients who are not working in marketing or make money related industries. They have deep expertise. They've been doing what they do for a long time, and they've decided to do some kind of marketing on an ongoing basis to share their wisdom, to share their understanding, and they're using the confession template to invite people into their world. That's really the use case for the confession template. As always on the show, we've covered three ideas. The first idea was relevance, was making your confession relevant to the person that you're reaching out to, and finding the balance in the story selection seesaw, where your confession is both relevant and unexpected to the reader. The second idea we talked about was insider knowledge, was making the confession about some aspect of your deep in the trenches experience that your recipient just isn't going to have heard, because that's going to evoke curiosity and make them want to subscribe to your list, want to download your lead magnet, want to take action. That's going to generate a real curiosity and a desire to subscribe to your list. The third idea was proof, was the fact that in most cases I found that adding in a proof element about the offer that you're making has helped improve results. And as a starting point, I would definitely try to include that in the ad. We're getting towards the end of this series on LinkedIn conversation ads. On the next episode, I'm going to move on and talk about a different template. We're going to talk about the prediction/warning template. which is great if the stakes are quite high for your potential clients and things can go horribly wrong, in which case you might want to pay close attention to next week's episode about the prediction or warning. If you've been following along and you've been getting value from these episodes, you can do a couple of things. You can leave me a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. The main ones are Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also subscribe free to podcast email notifications at storyselling.biz/podcast. When you opt into the list, you'll get my LinkedIn conversation ad template, which I referenced a few times in this episode. You'll also get my lead incubator email sequence blueprint, which is my recommended email sequence for sending after people have responded to your ad. If you still don't have a copy, you can grab a copy of my book, Simple Story Selling, at storyselling.biz/book, or you can find it on Amazon in Kindle and paperback formats. And finally, if you're listening along to these episodes, you know that your ideal clients are on LinkedIn, you know that you want to try running LinkedIn ads, you're slightly worried about draining your bank accounts, funding the Microsoft Christmas party, and you know that you need help, you can go to storyselling.biz/LinkedIn-ads. I have options there for working with me on either an agency basis or on a training done with you basis. All that's left to say is thank you as always for listening. Please do share this episode with someone who might need to hear it, someone in an expertise-based business who has thought about LinkedIn ads. They could perhaps leverage their expertise, use the confession template, generate some affordable leads. Having said that, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Selling Podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. Head to storyselling.biz/podcast, where you can opt in to future episode notifications and also download my lead incubator blueprint. You can also find my book, Simple Story Selling, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.